Okay, so here we are, Friday morning. It's about 6:10, and we're on the final day of baking some bread. So you might hear a little bit of noise in the background. My oven is on, and just to recap, we've had these resting in the fridge for a couple days now since Wednesday, and this has been a little bit of an exception. Usually, I would only let it rest in the fridge for overnight. But this time I did 2 nights because I already had some bread that I was eating. So, or actually some par baked bread. So here's the rest of my par baked bread. I usually can bake a loaf halfway through, wrap it up in one of these clean bags, put it in the fridge, and it'll last about a week before I actually finish baking it, and it looks as good as new. So it's a nice trick when we don't feel like sharing our bread. We'll make a loaf for now and a loaf for later. What I'll probably end up doing is doing that again today, where I bake a loaf all the way through, might give that away to somebody, and then I'll do a par bake loaf for us to have later. So got some of my tools here. I got my rice flour out because I love to coat a little bit more of that. I have a lame, and basically it's just a razor, really sharp Japanese razor on a handle. You can use a sharp knife. You can use a lot of different things. You can buy some cheap scalpels off of Amazon. These are invaluable to me to score your bread. I got that for Christmas a couple years ago. I love it. And then I put a little bit of ice in my Dutch oven because I've watched a lot of videos that talk about putting some sort of spray, some mist, some whatever in your Dutch oven. One of them mentioned putting ice in. I just find that to be so much easier. So I'll walk you through that. But I wanted to do an unwrapping here, an unboxing, if you will. So here they are. They have risen, which is great. I don't want them to over rise. A lot of people try to wait too long to let things rise, and all you're doing is letting all the gas out of your bread before you actually put it in the oven. So I'm a big believer in not letting it over rise. So it's a fine line. You'll figure it out yourself based upon the temperature of your house, the temperature of your fridge, how happy your yeast are. Everybody's yeast is different depending on where they live. But yeah, so what I like to do is kind of give them a little shake around to make sure they're not sticking to the sides. That one looks good. This one looks, I could stick it just a little bit right there. I'll just gently kind of pull away if I think it's sticking. And you'll see why I'm doing that here in a sec. So let's pick on this guy first. So I've got this guy here, and I'm gonna put him in first. I've got a little hot pad. So what I'll do is I'll grab one of the Dutch ovens out of the oven, show you how I flip it and score it, and we'll get going. I love to use parchment paper to put these into my Dutch ovens. It kind of just creates a little hammock, if you will, a bread hammock. So yeah, so I'm gonna put it, the parchment paper here, put it like this, put some sort of surface on top, cutting board. You can use your pan, whatever you use to put it in the fridge. Flip it over, and it comes right out. A lot of different ways to score. If you want what's called the big ear on your bread, you kind of come in at a 45-degree angle, bring it down, that'll make a big ear. You can do cross hatches, you can do a lot of different things. My favorite is just a few lines, and this thing is so sharp I'm barely even pushing on it. I don't want to push too deep because then it will ear out and flour. I just wanted to kind of open up a little bit like the bread I grew up eating in the Bay Area. So this one's ready to go. I'll get it in the Dutch oven. So I've had the oven preheating for a while now. Our oven can preheat all the way up to 550, and that's what I was preheating it at. And then I will cook these at 450 in the oven because I've found that cooking at a too high a heat, it gets a little bit brown too fast, and then the inside won't cook as well. So I figured that 450 is a good number. I see a lot of European bakers cooking at 450, which I think is 230 Celsius. So I just pick it up, try not to burn myself, put it right in there. I want to grab a little bit of rice flour and just give it a little dose, not too much. It's just for aesthetics, really. Just gives it that nice little white crust you see at bakeries. So then I take one of my ice cubes, put it in there. That guy's ready to go. So let's do another one. Because I do 2 at a time in my oven. I baked so much bread that in about 1.5 years I killed my cheap oven. I tried repairing it a few times. After that, we said, you know what? It's cheap. Let's just get a new one. So we did. Okay. So let me grab the other Dutch oven. This Dutch oven's a little bit bigger, a little bit older. As you can see, I think it's gotta be 15 years old, but it just works so well for baking bread. And it turned color after I started using it to bake bread because it gets so hot in the oven. So this guy here, again, I'm just gonna give it a real simple score. When you're scoring, you don't wanna be nervous, you just have to go for it. You see, I kind of messed that one up, but there we go. Fix it. I've got my lame and a little bit of water. Keeps it nice and clean. This guy will go in here. Another ice cube. Actually, let's do this first. And put the ice cube in. This lid really likes to rattle. It's not gonna rattle, good. All right, so these are gonna go in the oven. I'll put them in the oven, turn the oven down to 450 and bake it for half an hour. And then I'll restart the video and show you what a par bake loaf looks like. And then after that, I'll restart the video and show you what a finished loaf looks like. All right, so it's been half an hour. I'm gonna take the loaves out, figure out which one I want to save for par bake, and then I'll just rotate the other one in the oven and leave it in there. Now they've been in there for about half an hour at 450 in a covered Dutch oven. You leave it in that Dutch oven to create steam. Steam is needed to make a good bread. So I'm going to step over to my oven, check it out real quick, and see what we got. Okay, so here is my par bake loaf. Look at that. So it looks like I did cut a little too hard here, so that created that little funny ear. And remember, we're home baking here, it doesn't have to be perfect. But I'll take it out and show you what this looks like. Keep in mind that Dutch oven is 450 degrees, so you just gotta proceed with caution. But yeah, so this is a bread that is totally baked through. The inside is fully cooked, but the outside is not that golden color. So I'm gonna leave the other one in there for about another 20 to 30 minutes, depending. I leave the lid slightly cracked so I don't scorch the top of it in the oven. And then after 20 minutes or so, if it looks like it still needs some time, I'll take the lid off another 5 minutes or so, and then it'll be done. But this guy is fully cooked. So what I'm gonna do is get them on a baking rack, and then what we'll do is let them fully cool and put it in a plastic bag, wrap tightly, store it in the freezer, and then you can keep it for about a week before doing the final bake. And then with the final bake, what I do is I put it in the oven, an unheated oven on just a real simple pan, and I turn the oven on to 450. And then usually for me, it takes around 25 to 30 minutes for it to cook. After the oven has come up to temp, I'll rotate it a little bit, and I'll be checking on it every 5 minutes or so until I get the crust color that I like. I'll take it out of the oven, let it sit for half an hour before slicing into it. That's a big mistake a lot of people make, is they don't wait to slice into their bread. And if you don't wait, you let out all the moisture, and then you're gonna have like a couple good pieces that'll blow your mind, and then the rest of your bread's not gonna taste very good, and you'll be disappointed and wonder like, gosh, the first few pieces were great. Why is this piece not any good? Because you open it up and then all the steam released. By leaving it closed like this, you keep all the steam in there, which is your moisture. But just taking a look at it, this is a pretty good looking loaf. You know, I've got some tall sides here. By tall sides, I mean, this one actually kind of came down a little bit, but this side's nice and tall, vertical. This side's got a little bit of a slope to it. But I'd give this loaf, I don't know, a B, B minus. Could have done better. But is it gonna taste great? Yes. Are people gonna love it? Yes. So that's what's most important. So I'll go and pause the video again and then take another quick little snippet when the last one is ready. Okay, so the bread is now done. This bread was in the oven for about a total of an hour, half an hour with the lid on to get the steam going, about 20 minutes or so with the lid off, and then I ended up taking it out of the Dutch oven just to get some of these brown notes that I like on there. A lot of this blistering comes from the ice cube that I put in there. These blisters are really fun and add a nice crunch to it. So once it comes out of the oven, it's rock hard, but as it starts to cool off, the crust will soften up. But overall, I'd say this loaf came out really great. We've got the nice 4 cuts that I put in here. It's got some nice tall sides on it. Putting it in that smaller Dutch oven gives it a really nice shape. So again, to recap, we did the auto lease and boosted the starter Monday night. We then did the stretch and fold and incorporated the starter and the salt into the dough Tuesday morning. We shaped the loaves Wednesday morning. And then I went ahead and let this the dough sit in the bannetons, the shaping of the loaves, for 2 days in the fridge. And today is Friday morning, and that's when I baked it. I can actually bake it on Thursday morning if I wanted to, if I would have left it out on the counter after I'd shaped it for 2, 3, 4 hours and then put it in the fridge. And a lot of those times are very subjective because it just depends on how warm your house is. So bread moves a lot faster here in our house when it's warm in the summer, a lot slower when it's colder. But overall, I'd say this loaf turned out pretty great. I'll figure out who I'm gonna give it to. But yeah, any questions about how to bake bread from here, let me know in the comments or just shoot me a text. But I'm quite happy with this. This will make people quite happy. And again, I do my bread this way where I'm doing a little bit at a time because I don't want to spend all day watching dough rise, making sure that it's risen correctly. I just find that to be laborious, and I don't want to spend all day watching it. I find it to be a lot easier to do this in 15 to 20 minute steps every morning, incorporate it into my day. And then of course, one night after putting our son to bed, that's when I start to do the auto lease. So a little bit at a time gets you really good bread. And by doing those stalls in the fridge, it really allows for the sour flavor to kick in, which a lot of people really like about my bread. It's got a real complex flavor to it, and I credit that with how I slow down the overall rise of it. So thanks for watching, really appreciate it, and yeah, cheers.